Hello, this is Randy Ripke, the developer of TASbillerCloud. In this video, we're going to learn how to use some new features, including how to make a first page summary page for master subaccounts, how to arrange tables differently, how to insert graphics into our backgrounds of our tables, and how to use a new field available on the rate tab for customers that shows the description associated to a posting account. So we're looking at page one of what is now a summary page. This is a master account with auto percent of master subaccounts. So we're able to, on the page one, have just the master account's total information. You'll notice I've made some changes to the heading. We're also showing a usage summary, which is the total of all of the subaccounts combined. So for this client, on page one, they're going to see that they had 611 calls in total for all of their subaccounts. And this is the balance activity on their account and a more abbreviated footer. It makes for a nice clean presentation on page one. And then proceeding to page two, we're seeing just the subaccount information. Now notice also I have 3 subaccounts on this page, and that's a new setting. You can have a user-defined number of subaccounts per page. Now be sure to test this because depending on how many lines of posting accounts and assets you have per subaccount, you may want to be kind of careful with this. You could only have 1 subaccount per page and have a very nice one-page presentation if you have a lot of charge items or a lot of assets, per subaccount. I'm thinking 2 might work per page for most applications. I've managed to squeeze in 3 here because this layout and these billing items fit just right. Now also notice that we've added a new field, and this is actually coming from a new field on the rate tab. It's the description for a posting account that you can enter on a per client basis, and it flows through, in this case, from the master account to each of the sub-accounts on their fixed charge description area. A couple other things I'm doing here. I have this double blue line separating the posting accounts. It's for a little nicer effect as far as breaking up the sub-accounts. I've used some shading to shade the heading and the totals for the sub-accounts. I've also gone a little bit wider with the charges. We have plenty of room for the quantities included and billable to be in the same line as the description for the charge. And then lastly, on page 3, we have, again, a different look for the footer, a little bit cleaner. If you like this, I can show you how to do this. Just some other ideas for things you may want to tweak your templates and have a little different look depending on the client. Let's start in customer maintenance. The fields you see below the posting account for both the fixed and quantity service posting accounts are the new optional descriptions. These are the ones that are showing up beside the posting account title name on the invoice in the subaccount section. You can also see these previewed by editing a subaccount, and you'll see that that description flows through to each subaccount. Now, these are the new auto percent of master type, which means that it's taking a percent of the master's charges and applying it to each subaccount based on the subaccount's usage, in this case of operator time. Next, let's look at the options tab for this client. Now notice I have it selected using a custom invoice template for this client versus the default template. I've also had the checkbox checked for include the analysis on the invoice. This is for the master account. I'm also including the analysis for all the subaccounts on the invoice. This is a new field now that says use the total of subaccounts transactions in the analysis. This is what gives us the grand totals of all the usage, calls, minutes, what have you, on the master account for all of the subaccounts totaled together. So this is how I would set up an account, a master account, to use this new invoice template with the subaccounts beginning on page 2 and the first page being the summary page. So here we are in the template editor for the new master summary page invoice. Now let's go through each of the blocks one by one, starting with the first page header. So we'll edit this. Nothing really new here, just a different table layout. This is actually a series of rows that I've used, and then in 2 columns, and I've right justified the titles and then left justified the field names. This is pretty basic. I'm sure you can be able to handle that. Into this next section of the second page header, this is where that striping comes into play. This is really just a table that I set up with 2 very short rows. So if we go into cell properties, you can see that it's only a 2 pixel high cell, but it's 675 pixels wide. So it's the entire width of the printable area of our page, but it's only 2 pixels high. And I'm filling this one on top with the light blue, and then this one on the bottom with the darker blue. And that's what's giving me this striped effect with the 2 colors. And I'm also in this area using the account number and customer name for the header. Now moving on down the details section, because all of our charges are falling on the sub-accounts, these really won't print except for things like late charges or perhaps any one-time charges that you may want to apply to the master. So this area right here you wouldn't change a whole lot. You may want to adjust the width so that it matches up with the subs, but otherwise this is pretty standard. Same for the payments area. This might also show up if you're reprinting an invoice that's already paid. You want that payment to show up on that first page summary section. Now what I did here was I took the usage summary and the analysis and added this block in the middle that has the total for the invoice. So in the analysis section, let's look in here. Now notice this table is actually tabbed itself over a little bit all by itself. Whereas you'll probably see these in some of your older tables from years back. I was using a column to kind of push everything over a little bit. So let me show you how I did that. So we're going to go in here and we're going to take out this row, or this column rather. So we're going to delete that column. Now we're going to edit the properties for this table. And we're going to go into more tables settings. And this is on the box section. And we're going to put a margin on the left of, say, 40 pixels. Let's see what that does for us. And when we go back out, we can see that's already pushed over 40 spaces. Now we want to kind of line up with this one. So let's see what I have this one set at. So we'll go into table properties, more table styling, and this is at 58 pixels. So let's make that one the same so they match up. I apologize for the flipping up and down here. More table stylings, we'll make that 58. And so now these 2 tables are lining up without having to add a column to the left. This is also allowing me to use the border around this table to give this double line effect. When you have a table that has a kind of a buffer column, if you will, using these frames is a little more difficult. Now while we're here, let's look at the shading for this background. So on this table, we'll go to table properties, and I have an image there. So I'm going to change that image. I can go into my table manager and say I want it to be a different color. Say I want it to be green. So I can insert that, and let's see how that looks. And now that background is green. I can go into here and go back into table properties and choose another one. And let's see how that one looks. More of a starburst look. It's kind of a lighter color. So in this case, you may want to take the text and change it from white, to black. Now it's showing up pretty nice. So to save all of this, we go back into Design View, and we can preview it here a little bit. And there's our change, and we can hit Save. Our template's been updated. Now moving along into the summary section, I took the account summary, which has the age analysis, and moved it from the last page footer into the summary section of the first page. So that's where all this is coming from on that page 1 that you saw, that summary template. Now on the sub-accounts, I did the same thing with the 2 stripes for the separation line, did the shading for the sub-account name and description, widened the description area. And then on the fixed and quantity charges, I added this item non-recurring description. This is the description that's found below the posting account on the rate tab in customer maintenance. That's the unique description that shows up. And these fields are all listed in here. It's this very last one is the new one, the item rate description. And that prints the whatever text you have associated with the posting account on the client's rate tab on the customer's invoice. Now in this case, I'm printing them side by side. I would just have a blank space there. I've also seen people add a line below. It just depends on how you want the presentation on the invoice. Then going forward, The footer, we've made some changes here. So the page footer is a little more brief, and the last page footer just has the total amount due. Again, that same method with having the graphic in the background and the different layout for the footer. Now, one thing that's very new on this, I should have pointed out earlier, I suppose, the very heading up here, this is where you turn on the first page summary. So this option right here will tell the system to begin printing sub-accounts on page 2. This gives you the ability to have that page 1 as a summary. And then right above that is the number of sub-accounts per page. So you can have 1, 2, 3. If you don't want to have any limit, then just zero this out and it'll print as normal. So I have this one set for 3. We can change it to 2. And let's just see what happens with that. I'm going to save this. And we'll go to my test account. So now we have, this is the new shading for our background here. This is our sub accounts now with 2 per page. So 1, 2 on this page, 1, 2 on this page, and the last one on the last page with our new footer. So that's a summary of the new features on the templates on TASbiller Cloud. If you have any questions, please give me a call. Thank you.